Today I'm showing you how to create an easy landscape drawing from your imagination. Hi, I'm Syndia. If you like oil pastels, subscribe, hit the bell, because there will be more. For this drawing, I'm using the Statler oil pastel set. I made a full review of this set and I'll put a card at the end of this video if you're curious and you want to watch it. I'm also drawing this on the Fabriano sketchbook, the one I hauled a few weeks ago, trying it out. This paper is a little thin, but surprisingly it worked out really well. As usual, I'm using painter's tape to create a nice little white border. As I was saying before, this is a very simple nature scenery that you can draw from your imagination. I like drawing from imagination because it's always a surprise to find out what it's gonna look like at the end, as opposed to having a reference image to try and reproduce. Sometimes it's a great surprise, sometimes not so good, but it's fun all the same. I'm going through the process of how I do it, but I strongly encourage you to change the colors, to change the different planes and the composition of your drawing and really have fun and experiment with it. That's the fun of this project. I keep this very impressionistic just because I really like it more than realism. It's just a question of personal taste. I like textures, I like colors and lines rather than render something very realistically. It's just a question of preference. You do whatever you like. As always, I start by putting just a little bit of pigment down at a time as opposed to blocking the color and saturate the paper. I use blue for the sky. I use the stick on its side, dispersed some pigment randomly kind of. Then I come in with a white oil pastel to soften the sky a little bit, blend everything out using the white and fade it to complete white towards the horizon line. I'm picking the colors a little bit at random. I'm deciding to go orange for those mountains, and then you'll see that I'll use a brown for a first tree line. A good rule of thumb to remember is to use more muted colors and paler shades at the background of your composition, and to keep the more striking, brighter, vivid colors at the foreground. That will help give the impression of perspective. So you can try to stack different planes and textures on top of each other with muted colors, different types of muted colors. You can use grays, a muted green, and then when you get closer to the foreground, you use one bolder color. I usually use black just because I like that striking effect. Just try things out, and by doing a bunch of different renditions, you'll see what works for you, what you like, and you'll discover really cool things along the way. In my drawing, I knew that I was gonna use a black tree line as a main focus of the drawing in the middle of the page. So I chose brown for that first tree line in the background because in comparison to the black in the foreground, it's more muted. I'm using a dark golden yellow for the meadow, and I want a lot of textures, so I'm gonna put some pigment down but not blend very much. And as always, by adding multiple colors on top of each other, I create more depth and more textures. So to that yellow, I will add some brown, a little bit everywhere. Less is more. It's easy to overdo it, so I try to put just a little bit at a time, take a step back and look, and try not to put too much because it's hard to remove once you put too much. So I go in with a bit of brown, then I will add some more black. So here's that pop of color, that big focus I was talking about before. I'm using black as my main tree line, but for this you could use any color you want. You could use a dark green, dark purple, or blue. Here, instead of doing that straight tree line across the page, I could have put them in different angles and I could have put multiple planes of black, but I chose that simple tree line just because I liked it that way. So you could play with these ideas in your own composition. I'm also using black at the bottom of the tree line and a little bit in the middle to create more texture. Again, less is more. I just put a little black because black gets very overwhelming. So if you do use black, keep that in mind. Here I'm adding a few purple wildflowers. I thought it would look nice without overpowering the composition, just because I had that big block of yellow and the orange mountain, so that's a lot of colors. But I think red might also have been interesting. Again, it's all about experimenting and seeing what you like and what works, because there are no rules. Then I tried out a little bit of the scruffito technique, which is putting a bunch of little scratches to give a tall grass effect. I don't know that it did much for the drawing. I could have gone without. I think to have that effect pop a little more, you need different tones. So if I had put, let's say, a dark green, it would have worked a little bit better. So if you do try the scruffy toe, maybe try putting down the first layer of color, doing the little scratches, and then with another color, like a contrasted color, go in with the side of the stick gently over it, and it will make the scratches pop a lot more. The fun thing about this project is that it's so easy and simple that you can do 3, 4, 5 in the same sitting, just because it takes maybe 10, 15 minutes to do one. You can experiment. It's from your imagination. That's beautiful and unique, and it's addictive. And as promised, here's the Statler oil pastel review.